Good evening, everybody. This is Lorecraft. I'm Grit City Mike.
I'm
I'm
Erston.
joined by Erston, and
Didn't
we
wait for it this
are.
time.
Yeah, he didn't wait for it this time. It's crazy. We
Ready.
don't know what we're doing now. We are doing something brand new. We're doing something different. Our first ever reaction video. We're big fans of Bellular. He just got through doing Endwalker. We got through doing Endwalker, and we are. We want to talk about him talking about it. Like I said, we're big fans, and we've had a little bit of a discussion after watching this. So now we want to kind of share a sort of rehash of that discussion with all of you. So without further ado, we're not going to keep you around too long on an intro. So I will go ahead and get it started, and we're gonna do some React Andes here.
Well, Endwalker, what a journey it is. It's hard to take in the scope of all that you do. A break from the norm here, though. This is almost a 100% spoiler video. I'm going to say that my TLDR is that
yes, you have been warned.
One character didn't work great, but just about everything else I loved. The locations, the dungeons, the trials, the narrative, the philosophical depth, even just the sheer spectacle. I think this is a worthy end to the story thus far, and a surprisingly daring one at that. Okay then, it's time to talk about the spoilers. You have been warned, so let's go.
Okay, so
You have been warned.
you have been warned. You have been warned.
A spoiler is our spoiler.
Yeah, so it's spoilerception. So one thing that I also wanted to catch on with that is the philosophical context, because as we talked about in the podcast previously, that stuff got me hard, man.
Oh yeah.
just books, big, thick, dusty books that I had to read in Philo 101, and anthropology back in college.
Archaeology 101.
Oh, so good. And so, touching on those philosophical things, and talking about the spectacle, having to kind of desensitize ourselves, and maybe and have to go through it again with our alts, like we were talking about a little bit ago.
Yeah.
What thoughts take away you?
For me, I definitely don't think I geeked out as much with the philosophical parts as you did. It was definitely more of a feels thing for me, and discovering Garlemald, and Charlie, which were my two big things. And of course, what nods to FF4 there would be, since that's my favorite FF of all time.
Yeah.
Which I think is also Bellular's, coincidentally. But anyway, yeah, those are my big, that's what I was mostly focused on when I was going through Endwalker. And I was not disappointed.
Yeah, I think for me it was proving my theories right, which none of them were. Not a damn one. I mean, but that's, it is what it is. They, just because they wouldn't write it the same way that I would doesn't necessarily mean that my writing is better or anything like that. They're the ones who get paid to do it, and I just speculate. But I mean, yeah, because I had a lot of big ideas going into it, and I was like, I think they're gonna do this, and I think they're gonna do this.
I'm waiting for my reveal to prove me right. I'm waiting for it.
And none of them. None of them. The only thing that I was right about was that we were gonna have to kill both Zodiac and Hydra. That was the only thing. even the context in which we had to beat them was utterly incorrect. So
yeah.
So I kind of had to deal with that. But yeah. Overall, both of us, all of us, I think we overall love Endwalker. It's not exactly what you get on the box, but it gets you there, most definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
We last left off at the utter high of Vana and Elpis, grappling with what all of that stuff means. And I love seeing a window into a society that is so ideal and so perfect, but really is it? Because really, so much of the moral quandaries of how they use creation magic, even the existence of a mind wipe device that works away.
Sorry, there's a pause for me. I think for me, or at least for you, going in, you had this like, Vinat's not good and don't quite trust her. And I feel like a lot of people had that going in. For me, that was Graha, the Crystal Exarch, all the way through Shadowbringers. I'm like, I don't trust this motherfucker. He's up to some. He's gonna betray us. I know he's gonna betray us. For me, that was the big twist for both of these, was that they didn't betray us.
Yeah. I mean, it was more because of the whole primal thing, and the idea that we, as the Warrior of Light, were just tempered, which we still don't have an answer.
Yeah, we still don't know if we really were tempered, technically.
We still don't know if we just got tempered, and and now it doesn't matter because Heidel's not around anymore. But that question still has yet to be
really answered. Yeah.
And of whether or not our tempering was simply, so low key, that we were able to pretty much do whatever we wanted to, unless it was going to take us off the path of being able to save the world, then she might have exerted some influence. At that point where you're like, where you've redesigned your house for the 75th time, and the new MSQ pops up and she goes, hey.
Though I wonder, it's kind of funny. The strongest of the two primals seemingly had the least influence on those that were tempered by it, or maybe it's just so much more subtle that it's just more imperceptible to those affected by it.
I would figure like just talking in lore speculation that Heidelin's tempering, if it's a thing, which I mean you can't really say that it's not, because
that's just simply how they are. Yeah,
because Venat was a previous Azim, and because the whole thing about Azim is freedom, because that's so much a part of her core. Maybe if someone else was the heart of Heidelin, maybe that'd be a different thing. Maybe it would be more a traditional goddess type role where you are tempered, do what I say. Because because even Zodiark's tempering was in service to not Zodiark, but to Zodiark's function.
Yeah.
That he tempered everyone who summoned him, so that way he could make sure that he stuck around to keep the new laws,
to keep the order. Yeah, it's the preservation of him.
Yeah. So maybe in the grand scheme of things, those first two big primals, their tempering isn't that big of a thing, and it's something that becomes more pronounced the smaller the god.
Yeah, where they're so large that their influence is sort of like that voice in the back of your head, as opposed to that just outright just mindless worship that Ifrit and the Beast Tribe primals seem to have. And though that also could maybe be due to the Asian corruption that they talked about in not Aporia, but I guess down by the Dragonrock docks, where they talk about how the corrupted summonings, that they're not true summonings, and then
because they're influenced by the way that the Asians taught them how to summon. So it's not the pure reflections of their gods. Yeah, that could be a thing. I also kind of think, and we'll get off of this tangent here now. It's the difference between a cosmic level force and a terrestrial level force. Get the cat.
Cat primal.
is attempting to temper the production. But like, because Hydaelyn and Zodiark are such big concept gods, like they don't need to really exert influence because their influence is like reality itself. While all of the lower gods, essentially the smaller primals, they're very limited spheres of influence. So their tempering is more
concentrated in a smaller sphere
and focused on maintaining their sphere of influence, while, you know, everyone's pretty much on the same boat of making sure that the planet stays alive and that the wind keeps blowing. You know,
that's a fair point.
Of a mind wipe device that works the way that one does, those aren't really grappled with by that society. I mean, hell, the place is even called Elpis. Elpis, daughter of Nyx, Hope. Elpis is hope in the ancient Greek, and Elpis was in fact the only thing to remain in Pandora's jar, or as it would later be known, Pandora's box. There in Elpis, Hermes toils to create life such that the star may be enriched, to push forward to that greater good, to the thing that their whole...
You fucking hippie. Fuck you, Hermes. Goddamn tree huggers. Okay. So from my philosophy nerd thing about Elpis and Pandora's box and such like that, just the allegory, because so first of all, we have to Hermes, Hades, Hythlodaeus. When we get into Pandora, we find out that there's an Athena. So for all, you know, the Amaretines, the ancients, are the Greek gods. They are the progenitor gods. And I mean, yeah, there are pantheons that predate the Greek gods, but for all intents and purposes, most people first learn about pantheons from the Greeks.
Via the Greek, the stories of the Greek gods.
Those are the first. That's the first pantheon that you really get. So that's like that's the first time that you learn about multi-god systems, and essentially the Amaretines are that. And then to that Elpis is a facility that is used to test new life that these gods are creating to seed the world. And so it is hope that is seeding the world. I mean, sure, in game the Amaretines, Elpis doesn't mean hope, but that's what allegories are for. And so and all of the Greek, katesis, which is the stasis of the mind, and
just feed all this Greek to me. Right. I mean, it's all Greek to me. So,
fuck you, Hermes.
Society has basically oriented themselves around. So it's quite fun that Meteion, daughter of the installation of hope, comes to inhibit all that does pour forth from Pandora's jar. I mean, even the word entelechy, which is what Meteion is, that carries a lot of philosophical and metaphysical weight. It does. And of course, very much fitting in with the Amarotians, it comes from Aristotle. Entelechy is the realization of potential. Like that final realized form. A very easy way to put it that I think everyone can understand is, it is that the tree is the entelechy of the seed. This I all adore. Meteion, I mean, even being a being of Dynamis. So Meteion, a being of Dynamis, is an entelechy and is created with a goal in mind, essentially to find hope in the stars. Hermes, as an immortal being, he desperately wishes to know, in a way, entelechy. He wants to see the actualized result of the potential of everything that he's doing through that growth, right? He wants that answer. He wants to see that true hope in the stars. But is hope an extension of suffering? This is where Dynamis, potential in sort of in the ancient Greek is also something that comes in big for, funny enough, Aristotle. What I love here, though, is that the philosophical depth fits. It's not just lip service, right? It's not just a cool sprinkling of, oh, that's things from the past. It's real, but also it doesn't take over from characters. Rather, it is showing these characters inhabiting extremely human truths that indeed have been expressed through the philosophy of our civilization. And they do that all while having all these characters feel like their own very well realized people, not merely figureheads of an idea. And poor Meteon, with all that she saw, hope is a part.
I was gonna say I did enjoy the little romp around Elpis with Emmett and Hithodaeus and Venat. It did feel fleshed out, and they didn't feel like they felt like they existed before we walked through the portal.
It's funny that they had this long bit for Elpis, and then just before that, you essentially have that long bit for the moon, and that long bit for the moon was practically insufferable, because it didn't set up anything, and there was no, like, aside from the fun of beating up the fucking Wall Prince when they try to take you prisoner.
Yeah.
But aside from that, there's no, like, and telling the story of Urianger, which I think was planting the seed to make you cry when he goes and he talks with Moonbreeda's parents. And
yeah, it definitely dragged.
Just that part dragged. And then the Elpis part, which is also pretty long. The only part that I hated was chasing Meteon. That was the only part that I hated.
Yeah.
That part was dumb. It took so long.
Why did you need like 7 or 8 waypoints?
Yeah. Like, why did it take so long to find it? And it's like, I get it. It was like generating tension. We have to find Meteon. But she the big secret. And me personally, like, the moment she started getting her reports back from the other Meteons and was like, they hate, they hurt, they hate, I thought 2 things. One, she found out that everything out in the universe is dead, because I instantly went to the Fermi paradox.
She got Fermied, yeah.
She got Fermied. Or B, she found the anti-spiral. Excuse me.
Spoiler alert, she became the anti-spiral.
I mean, she ends up becoming the anti-spiral. But, when she said those words, they hate, they hurt, and stuff like that, I'm like, oh, she either found the anti-spiral or she found the Klingons.
Yeah, that was my initial thought, was that they, her things found, like, a particularly violent race, and that triggers something coming to Aetheris. But that was my first go-to thought. Yeah.
She went out there.
Something that's like eternally torturing her others.
And as soon as that happened, I'm like, well, I mean, in character, I'm like, okay, we got the answer. We got the answer.
I'm just gonna go back to future now.
And that which is an interesting thing. What if? Like, that's another what if. What if after you figure out, after you get the, you don't go into catesis. After you hear the message from Meteon, you just go, all right, I'm done. I'm out.
No, she's the cause.
I know how you guys fucked up. So I'm going to go back to the future and see if whether or not this particular knowledge will help. I wonder if Heidelin would be particularly upset with you when she sees you later. She's like, there was a bit more that
you kind of bailed on us, bro.
You kind of bailed. But yeah, then all of the philosophical drippings. I'll stop gushing about
for me. I think for me that plays into the examination of time and paradoxes. Like, if you knew that you couldn't have gone back, because then you couldn't have, then Venat would not have escaped through the spider tracker and escaped, and then prepped for you in the future.
But did
because
you know that?
Huh?
But
Whether
did
you
know
knew that or not, like it's that self-fulfilling prophecy where you had to go back in time because you had to try and change things so that all this would happen. And there's no way you could have avoided that.
Yeah. I also thought when we went to go back in time, when Elidibus is like, yeah, I'll just use, the remaining power of the Crystal Tower and I'll open up a door and go back in time. I'm like, you fool. We're the ones that started.
Yeah.
It's our fault.
That's exactly what I was thinking too.
Yeah, it's like as soon as we walk through that door, because he says the whole thing of you'll won't
Don't
be
change the past.
You won't be able. Well, he says you won't be able to interact with anyone, and I'm like, okay, that's a good safeguard. We're literally just going back there to observe. And fucking Hythlodaeus says, Hades, why don't you go ahead and give her, or Emmett, go ahead and give
our friend some ether.
So that way they can join us. I'm like, no, don't.
This is the worst idea.
I am just a little bird sitting on your shoulder. That was at that point that was where my brain was screaming.
Of suffering. Of course, the whole story with Pandora's box is that Pandora closed the box in horror of what poured out. But the thing at the very bottom of, really it was a jar, the thing at the bottom of the jar was hope. So when it was closed, she locked it inside. And that's what's fun. You see, hope to them was somewhat an extension of suffering. And I think we can all, in quite a real way, understand that. Yeah, to live is to suffer. I think to live is to hope. And where hope ends, often so too do we. That Medion built a nest of pure dynamis from the despair of fallen civilizations is an absurdly grim and depressing thing. There's absolutely no misunderstanding why Meteion fell the way that she did. And that's the question.
Okay, so one thing that I think may have been either glossed over or missed in this particular part of the assessment. Meteion ended a lot of those civilizations her damn self.
Yeah.
When you go through the dead ends and she takes you on a guided tour, at least one of them, if not all three of those fucking zones are she showed up, something happened, and then she ended it. Like
she amplified the distress and dark feelings that ended up perpetuating these doomsday situations, these apocalypses.
Yeah. So I mean, I get the feeling and I get the desire maybe to kind of protect Meteion. But Meteion was also a fully actualized being that was capable of making its own decisions. And it made those decisions with erroneous data, yes, but it still made those decisions. So,
that's why, because to me, I thought Meteion was like the creature that was given all this power and no sense of responsibility or experience to control it. It's like giving the child the power of God.
Yeah, it's like you sent these very sensitive little girls. I mean, number one, once again, fuck Hermes, because he sent an army of schoolgirls out into the universe because he was so certain that the answers that he was looking for were all going to be good answers. He literally couldn't imagine bad answers. He was like, okay, well, maybe one or two worlds will be dead, or maybe there'll be war somewhere else. But my intellecties, my Meteions are going to go out there, and the first thing that they say to everyone is, "I want to be your friend," and that is on Hermes. Hermes messed that part up because, after living tens of thousands of years, on a world with no war and with no strife, he completely what civilizations led to the Amaritines? Like
Yeah.
they weren't there all the time. There's something preceded them.
They had to have a proto-civilization for them.
Yeah, they had to build up upon something else. So it's like Medion got a bad shake, but Medion is not like innocent. Like if she had worlds that she showed up to that had already been dead, okay, fine, couldn't do anything about that. She ended the Rala. Like after they summoned their god to take their lives, she ended that world. After Omega, she ended that world. After Omega left went looking for Midgardsormr, and the Omicrons had no one left to fight, she ended that world. She ended the Dragon Star. She ended the Ea. Like
Bereft of hope.
Yeah. She decided that she was going to be the one, the end singer, for those worlds. So no, Medion, you don't get a pass. Like you got a bad shake, but with your ability to sense all emotions, the only ones that you chose to follow were despair and hopelessness. Nah, I'm good. I'm good, Doug.
Yeah, that's true, because those couldn't have been the only emotions that the people were feeling. They're just the ones that she latched onto.
I mean, unless for whatever reason, she only found worlds that were literally at the end of their rope and had no one left to hope on them, which I can't believe, because in Dead Ends, on the second one with the Global Citizen, there was one guy left.
There's one guy who had hope.
There was one guy who had hope. He killed everything else because he knew that he needed to end it. And I saw a really interesting thing on one of the Facebook groups about that someone in all of their runs through Dead Ends, every single time they got to the part with the Global Citizen when he launches the nukes, everyone that's with them always like kind of stands there and like takes in the moment, because like that's kind of the closest analog to us. And thinking about that for the moment, like, what if you're the one that presses the button, like, and you kind of got to take that weight. And so apparently every time they run through, they've run through Dead Ends. Every time they do, everyone just kind of stops. And
they notice the people don't instantly teleport away.
Everyone just kind of stops and takes a minute. Some people like pet the Global Citizen or cry with them or something like that. And it's just like, like.
That's a powerful moment in attention, for sure.
Yeah, it really is. Dead Ends, and specifically the second part. The first part disturbs me. The third part disturbs me. But like, Global Citizen.
I feel like that probably disturbs people the most because that's closest to our current world.
That's
like,
probably, It probably
as far as like our
harder.
Closest potential future, yeah.
It's people harder. Oh man, and once again, I hope, and I'm pretty sure that we will, when we start building the last dregs, that we're gonna get Global Citizen, and that's just gonna be funny, and that we get the fish people from the first dungeon to Dead Ends. Because I need to see them do the Namazu flop. I totally broke character the first time I did fucking Dead Ends because of the Namazu flop. All right.
Well, what question was she tasked with answering? A grand one about the meaning of life? Well, I mean, to the Greeks, hope is an extension of suffering. All she found was suffering. Of course she'll write off hope, even our character's hope, as just another way to suffer, and the suffering of a conscious being seems to be a bad thing. Therefore, we should all end it, and she's going to facilitate that. What turns her in the end, after we defeat her in that trial, is exactly what basically she can feel from us what Vana found. That it's nothing big, it's nothing grand. It is, in fact, the little joys along the way, along our journey. That's why Vana didn't return to the star. She did not buy the whole orthodoxy of her people, and indeed I think it was the orthodoxy of her people that led to that civilization falling, and that's something we see with the other fallen civilizations that are displayed in the end of this expansion. Vana was, after all, the traveler, just like you. And what's interesting is that we're seeing these societies reach such an advanced and monolithic actualization that they're kind of shown to have missed the point in a way. If suffering is the default and hope is a part of suffering, then we must strive to enjoy our journey as it happens. For regardless of definitions, those small joys that we feel are real to us. And with the cosmic hand that we've all been dealt, the sheer absurdity of it all, that's going to have to be enough. Hell, wouldn't it be boring if it turned out there was a...
Let's talk about absurdity.
Yeah. It's sort of kind of touching a little bit on the previous and transitioning to this one was my thought that, like, also looking at these other civilizations, no one else at all had hope. It's kind of weird that they had their, I don't want to say their own forms of warriors of light, but their own heroes who had such hope, that none of them reached out to her either.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's like, it's difficult. It's difficult
sisters, yeah.
to believe. It's difficult to fathom, and maybe kind of that's the point of it, that on all of these worlds, like, I mean, were there no other global citizens? like on world, on World 2 in Dead Ends, you have global citizen who I'm just gonna say is that world warrior of light. Gotta be.
Yeah.
And but that each of the worlds had been around so long that they had gotten so far gone that there was no hope. Now the Ia is an interesting kind of thought experiment on that, because the Ia, they never really lost hope. They just allowed their knowledge and logic to override it. They're just like, everything, the heat death of the universe is the only thing left. And no matter what you do, that is the end result. So it's like, let's just hang out dissipate.
Yeah.
Or let's find some bodies so that way
we can just die.
That way we can die. But like, it's, and like I said, that's why I'd love to understand. I'd love to know how many Medions went out there. What's the sample size? Like,
yeah, because
it couldn't have possibly gone out to. And the other thing, and Medion made it to the Dragon Star, and this post Omega, post-war. Did no one on the Dragon Star know about Midgardsormr? That Midgardsormr, took off and was literally taking hope with him. And yeah, Omega chased him down, so I can understand some of the other dragons being like, well, Omega's chasing him, like, the only end result is that Omega's going to kill the last dragon.
That's actually an interesting question. Was it post-war? Like, it seems like it was post-war, but was Midgardsormr still flying around in space at the time? Because I don't know if Mericidia was even around yet.
Well, I mean, Mericidia is post Midgardsormr coming to Etheirys.
Yeah.
After the brood hatches, and I mean, time, space, wibbly wobbliness.
As far as we know, the dragons didn't show up until post Sundering.
Yeah. Or at least like very shortly after, because
none of the dragons are sundered.
Yeah. But like, if Meteon arrived at the Dragon Star before Midgardsormr left, then that defeats that, because Midgardsormr had hope. That's why Midgardsormr left.
And the other brood that went out, because it sounds like Midgard wasn't the only one, but he was the only one that found somewhere.
Yeah, because that last dragon that deals with Estinian sits there and says, yeah, you know, we sent out many, you know, and every world that they landed on, you know, turned to war because people covet the power of dragons. And it's like, so she had to have landed there either before Midgardsormr left or after Midgardsormr left, and in either case, just the example of Midgardsormr defeats her argument. You know, just based on him.
I mean, I guess it could be argued that it enforces her argument because all of the worlds that they found ended up wanting the power of the dragons and ended up with conflict with the dragons, because they didn't know about Midgardsormr making it. And
yes, I mean, like I said, like there's little tiny holes that don't give me the same willingness to write off Meteon that maybe other people do. That, like, you know, Meteon made flawed decisions, but it's not like she made uninformed decisions. You know, and I think that there has to be like some accounting for that. Like, she has to take responsibility, especially for the worlds that she ended.
Yeah, and I feel like it's kind of building up on the whole, like, Entelechy and her being a being basically of emotion and not logic. So henceforth why she's not employing much logic, because she's a being of empathy and emotion and stuff, I guess would be the argument there.
Fuck Hermes.
True way to orient things?
Yeah.
If Hermes did indeed find a straight, exact answer to his question that ticked his boxes and had him satisfied. So poor Hermes then, and poor Amon. I just love how all...
He didn't look! He didn't look! Like, he didn't look. He sent, you know, a creature of emotion to suss out a answer of logic.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he sent a creature that's not capable of objective analysis to objectively analyze things.
And then on top of that, okay, let's throw out the ability to objectively analyze. Her function was to go out, get answers, report back to Hermes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where inside that function is, oh, by the way, I don't think Hermes is going to like these answers very much, so I'm just going to kill everything. Like, that's a fault in programming, my guy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, maybe it's because you have to be like super sensitive to Dynamis in order to be able to do FTL. Like, you know, because that's how they have to use Dynamis, because it's a greater force than Ether. So maybe that's how they're able to do FTL. Even though we don't use Dynamis to do FTL.
It's going to sound kind of weird, but why wouldn't you just build a vessel or a creature that you could just literally hop on and like a ship? Like,
you mean
like Moya from Farscape, huh?
You mean the lunar whale?
Yeah, like a bioorganic being capable of channeling dynamis to travel to the stars?
Well, I think I have a pretty easy answer for that. Something that involved would have drawn the attention of La Habrea and Emmett Selk real fast.
That's fair.
That's not a project you can hide. He obviously made Medion on the down low. Like, okay, that was a side project. If he had been working on something like a lunar whale,
officially registered,
or something like that, like, he would have had La Habrea and Emmett Selk up his ass from day one, because they'd have been like, so what you doing, buddy? He's like, oh, I'm building a life form that's going to be a ship that's going to take people to the stars, so that way we can go get the answers to life, the universe, and everything.
Maybe don't.
Maybe not. Did you run this by La Habrea? La Habrea's like, yeah, man, this is going to be fucking awesome. Because apparently, I mean, whichever La Habrea we're dealing with in Pandemonium, apparently he's a fucking madman, because he just doesn's give a shit. He's
literally got his own dark dungeon of
dungeon of
shit
monsters
he likes to play with. Yeah.
He goes up to somebody. He's like, hey guy, hey, you making something? Yeah, I'm just kind of tooling around with a couple concepts here and there, kind of putting things together. What would happen if we put fire on it?
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't really think my design is work, needs that. La Habrea, look, just put fire on it.
Just put fire
and make it big. Give it 3 heads. We're gonna put it in a dungeon.
So, I just thought of a tangential thing, but it's a question for you for later.
Okay.
It's involved with the raid.
Oh, okay.
This was handled. And beyond the more tearful moments with the Scions and with Ulyss, which I absolutely adored, I think all of this, Elpis Onward, was really my favorite bit of Endwalker. It's just the type of thing that will stick with you. It stuck with me. And
I really liked this scene.
You'll mull over.
Venat / Hydaelyn is a fucking G.
She really is.
She is an Omega level gangster. She absolutely exudes all levels of testosterone and estrogen and anything that involves being a badass. When she walks up to those dudes and she goes, you know what? We're not worth it. And from this point on, man will not fly to the heavens. He'll crawl. She just there's everything. It's just, oh man, I'm actually kind of tearing up about it because it's fucking amazing.
It's so amazing. It's so intense.
So good.
It's just like, you don't deserve this.
It's like, well, not just we don't deserve this.
Yeah.
Like
she's including herself. Yeah,
she's including herself in that. She goes, we messed up.
We as a world, we as a people,
we don't deserve to be able to answer the question. And the only way that we're gonna be able to answer the question is to suffer and to crawl where we could have flown. And just by her will alone is man brought to earth. And it's just
so good.
So good. And I'm so mad that we don't have any more Venat. And we don't have any more Hydaelyn. This is it. I really wish that we could have been able to develop even more of a relationship with Hydaelyn / Venat, because she's, out of everybody, she's my favorite, because she's one of those actually truly heroic characters that gets it. You have characters like, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, she's pretty Greek heroic too, like a Greek hero style, like attitude and everything.
She's very much like Odysseus classic. And Ulysses, and she's it is
Achilles.
It is the trial of the hero to walk through the mud and dirt and shit and come out the other side soaked in it, but still better than all of you.
Yeah.
And so that scene, the scene that we're looking at right now, where she's just getting caked in the dark sludge of humanity suffering that she brought upon us, I want a mod that gives us Amaranthine eyes. I want that. Those iridescent. Oh, it's so good.
Oh yeah,
it's so good.
So how bright they are.
Yeah, it's not like the limbo rings like on frickin' Al Ra. They're iridescent.
They give off their own light.
Yeah. Oh, so good. So good.
A puzzle box that raises interesting questions and answers both. It is no wonder that I really completely loved where all of this was going as the end approached. Through all of this, through these things bubbling around in my head, I experienced Fortuno finally opening up. The Scion's principal sacrifices so that you may go on, and every other character's understanding of those Scion sacrifices. Continually we saw us living the truth that it is the little joys that are where meaning is found. And, no, I don't think we were supposed to be worried the Scions were actually going to die there. I think that was made quite clear to us early on. Rather, it's how they went and what that meant that really mattered. And how they, through the shared experience of all of us through all of these expansions, were able to answer the questions of these shades, of these fallen civilizations. Of course, along with how the burden ultimately fell to us, the Warrior of Light, with all that means. And that was the core of things, and I bloody well enjoyed it. Of course, along with loving the lore.
It kind of echoes what what you'd said, in our long ass podcast was, they provided alternate answers to the questions.
And
they didn't dispute there.
And they didn't dispute. Yeah. They didn't say you're wrong. They just said
consider this.
Consider this as an option. And that is that's philosophy.
That's the crux of philosophy. Is
that's what it is.
You have your answer, but there's also other answers.
That no one answer fits all.
It's no one size fits all.
Yeah. It's that everyone finds their meanings and their definitions and their answers in their own way, but even though all of the answers are different, the end result is the same. And that's coming to a place where you feel content and capable with your life. You'll find your answers in different places and you'll find different answers. But if everybody just kind of gave themselves over to accepting their answers and not trying to make their answers everyone else's, then it would just be it would be like Shangri-La, man. We'd just be chilling, fucking drinking Kool-Aid.
Ascending to enlightenment.
just chilling out, eating popsicles and shit, man. And the feelings, going through Ultima Thule and doing the whole thing like we already talked about it ad nauseum, but just the fucking song.
Oh man, just how it builds.
Yes, yeah.
And then silence.
And then the RP walk.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, I watched Larry. I watched Larry's video where he goes through it, and he's sitting there, and he's just fucking tearing up, and I'm just like, man, was I I know I felt it, but I didn't feel it, you know. And I'm like, was that? I mean, because it was like 3:00 in the morning, and it was on that Wednesday, and we're just like, we're just gonna beat the game today.
We're gonna do it.
we're just gonna end
no
it.
feeling feelings. We're gonna finish this.
Yeah, also, no feelings, just pressing buttons. You know, and it's like I am glad, and I'm looking forward to later of you know, going through and doing it again on my alt. Maybe just before 6.1 comes out. Maybe I'll do it then.
Yeah.
Considering how easy it is to get through leveling. But yeah, it's just so good. So good.
Loving the fallen civilizations, especially the moment after the second dungeon boss.
Global citizen, rise.
Global citizen. Global citizen for president.
And quite a beautiful thing to be able to just portray during an MMO dungeon. And it's funny because it seems I've actually failed to mention enough of Vana and the Heidelin trial. All I can say is, suffice to say, I loved every second of that, and I think Vana just worked so well for me. And I believe with everything that I've said about my experience in Elpis and how that informed how I experienced the final parts of this story, it absolutely worked. So it is with a deep love of all of this that I now move on to the ending, which I did struggle with. I feel for vaguely interesting reasons, so let's talk.
Okay, so before we let Bellular get into his things on the ending, first, once again, Heidelin, Queen of G's, I mean, even like right up to there, like the fight with Heidelin doing that trial, where she goes, okay, look, I'm glad that all of you are committed, that all of you are good to go, that this is what you want to do, but I'm going to lay this out for you. Number one, you're going to be fighting a being that is greater than me or Zodiark. So if you can't beat me, I mean, you've already beaten Zodiark. If you can't beat me, you ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, if you go out there, you either come back or you ain't coming back.
Yeah, you're the Suicide Squad potentially.
Yeah. It's like if you are not committed to doing everything you can to finishing this fight, don't come back. Like, just let everyone be worried and fear for your safety and your health until they die. Don't come back and give them hope. You know? Like if you fail, don't come back and tell them. Just, when she does her freaking limit break and she goes, fly, fly, my children, and never return. And it's just like,
It actually kind of reminds me of the old, like, I think it's the Spartan saying, come back with your shield or on it.
Come back with your shield or on it, yeah. And once again, that's a Greek ass thing. That is some Greek shit of, you either come back and the job's done or
you're dead.
Or you died trying, And so Heidelin's just, I think Heidelin doesn't get Venat, Heidelin, whichever. I don't think Heidelin gets the recognition that she deserves for being as powerful of and not power wise, but being as powerful of a character as she is, and we barely know her. We literally spent 4 expansions. Minus Stormblood and Shadowbringers, because we don't hear shit from Heidelin in either of those. But we literally spent 4 expansions chatting with her every once in a while and getting vague instructions and just going on with the thing of, okay, well, if we're the champion of Heidelin, whatever we're doing is whatever she wants us to do. And we don't get to know Heidelin as an entity. We don't get to know Zodiark as an entity.
Not even less. He literally shows up to be a boss to be beat. That's it.
Yeah, like I mean, technically, I guess Elidibus.
Yeah, because I was going to say like, Zodiark doesn't really seem to have a voice, or isn't really like an entity in the same respect as Hydaelyn is.
Yeah, and I mean,
he's more of a force.
Yeah, you could attribute that to him being sundered and Elidibus not being attached to him anymore. But I mean, if that's the case, then you can go to Secret Seat of Sacrifice, and you could just kind of take Elidibus from Seat of Sacrifice and just put him in Zodiark, and then you could just kind of imagine how that fight would go. Like, you show up and Elidibus, if Elidibus was still part of Zodiark, and he talks about his duty, and man, if Elidibus was still inside Zodiark, we wouldn't have fought Zodiark.
Yeah,
I don't think we would have fought Zodiark, because Elidibus would be like, okay, look, here's the deal. With me around Zodiark, the world
exists. Yeah,
that the thing that my people failed to avoid, I'm forestalling it. It's still out there, and the reason why it hasn't touched us is because I'm here. So if you really think I'm that bad of a guy, I mean, go ahead
to your boss.
Yeah, go talk to your boss and see what she's got to say. And like, man, like Elidibus's decision to separate himself from Zodiark is like that's, and getting into Pandemonium. I'm going to go ahead and tinfoil hat it, and I'm going to theorize that Themis is Elidibus, is Elidibus before he's Elidibus, and the reason why Elidibus is the way he is because of us.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Inspired by us. That's the person he was talking about at the Seat of Sacrifice.
He gets inspired by the heroism and the devotion to duty and stuff like that, and he goes, "Yeah, this is the good stuff. This is what I want to be like. This is what I want to be." And so when it comes time to summon Zodiark, he's like, "I will do the duty for my people," and yeah. So I mean, they're probably going to pull a swerve and have it be something someone else. But I'm fairly confident right now that Themis is proto Elidibus, and that the reason why Elidibus is the way he is because of us.
Yeah, I feel like that too.
All right, here we go.
Xenos Ye Galvus, later dubbed Viator, Latin for traveler. And this moniker of traveler is obviously important. Azim, the member, the seat of the convocation, is known as the Traveler. And of course, the Warrior of Light is, if my count is correct, 9/14 of Azim's sundered soul. So as it stands, there you are, the two travelers, two peerless combatants. The two most
I don't know about
terrifying humans, one could argue. If people's reactions to Xenos, or the Garlean soldiers' reaction to you, are not enough to prove that you're the two most terrifying humans around, then being body swapped into a helpless soldier, forced to face your very own character's power, well, I think that does reinforce just how scary the Warrior of Light would be should they turn. It's on this level, and that of the expansion's philosophical themes, that Xenos really does work. Sprinkle in some meta commentary in the player, and for some players, you do indeed have one of the greatest moments in gaming. Absolutely. Now, not for me, very much not for me, and hopefully for interesting reasons. But absolutely for many, it was awesome, and I think understanding that is essential. Endwalker is grappling with something that I too have grappled with. Meaning. To be clear, alright, at my very core, I have been a big nihilist for a long time. I don't particularly like it. It's just how I turned out. I think that we are basically the consequence of hydrogen being left out of the fridge for a bit too long. A bunch of chemistry happens. And I think that therefore meaning is wholly self-defined by conscious beings. And I do not think that there is any form of essential meaning to life. There is, in my view, no prescribed meaning.
I have to put a little bit on Bellular here and put my philosophy hat on for a moment. Nihilism is essentially a philosophical belief in the absence of meaning. What Bellular is more describing himself as is an absurdist. Absurdism is a belief that meaning is entirely subjective and that there is no overarching meaning to everything. That everything is a consequence of chance, and that you find meaning inside of those things. It's like, not calling yourself a nihilist is essentially what like everybody in junior college philosophy like does when
ends up doing.
They go, you know, when they've fully cast aside all of the old ideas that their parents and family have drilled into them of what life is about and what life means, and they've grown into their own understanding. And like philosophy helps you do that because it exposes you to a bunch of different ideas. And when you pick up Thus Spake Zarathustra for the first time, you know, when you pick up Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil for the first time, like you go, yeah, man, nothing matters. Everything's just worthless, man. And it feels good. And especially for me myself, who grew up in a fairly religious household and had struggles with religion for all of my young life, getting to that point where it's like, God is dead, we killed him, which is, something that's taken out of context a whole lot. But, when you read that the first time and you're like, yeah, man, God's dead, man, we fucking killed him. And you feel that edginess and you're just like, yeah, then you read more stuff. Then you start getting into Sartre and Kant and other guys that have similar but diverging perspectives. And I think Endwalker's message is very much about absurdism and determinism. And the, finding the little joys that make the suffering of life worth enduring.
But yeah, I was gonna say, when he described it, I was like, that's weird. I've never thought of myself as a nihilist, because it always seemed more like, there's no meaning to my life. There's no, it always seemed that sort of like, not goth, but just sort of that melancholic.
Yeah, that kind of melancholic, and like that's another thing kind of about nihilism is that in most instances when a person hears nihilism, they're thinking Edgar Allan Poe, they're thinking, chubby goth girls, listening to Murder of Crows and fucking Naglfar and stuff like that, and they're their words are dying and shit like that. I mean, that is a junior college nihilist. That's exactly what that is. That's a junior college nihilist. Is the goth kids sitting in the back booth of the cafe drinking black coffee, even though they hate it, but they drink it because it's black. And all of us who have been through Philo, we've been through that. We've gone through that phase. And nihilism can be that. And like I said, it's junior college, it's cartoony. Nihilism can be that, but it's more just going, man, nothing matters. Like nothing matters. You can make things matter, but that doesn't make them matter. That's purely subjective. There's no objectivity to, what does it all mean? There's, when you shed the I guess, like when you shed those young shackles that, your family and stuff like that may have put upon you, especially if you grew up particularly religious and stuff like that, and you just kind of open your mind and you go, man. Now, some people, they encounter these things and they go deeper into their religion because that's where they find their meaning, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Definitely not. Yeah.
But, in many instances, people who found themselves wanting answers from the religion that they were given, the religion that they were put into when they're growing up, they'll find these concepts in philosophy like nihilism and determinism and absurdism and stuff like that, and they'll go, yeah, man, you're like, I found a truth. So yeah, if you identify with nihilism, with nihilistic tenets, but at the same time you're like, but like, I don't think everything sucks. Like that's closer to a true nihilist than most people think a nihilist is.
Yeah, like for me, my dad grew up Baptist, my mom grew up Buddhist, and neither of them really said, hey, you should do this religion. Like, religion was never a big thing in our house at all. And I think I grew up kind of more, life is what you make of it. If you feel like your life is worth it and you feel like you're satisfied with your life, then yes, it was worth it. Because to you, that being worth it to you is what matters.
Just like I keep on telling people, the only person that you have to live with for your entire life is you.
Yeah.
Like that's the
consideration only person to others, but ultimately you have to answer to yourself.
Ultimately, the only person you have to answer to is you. And how, just for a last moment of gushing, how great is it that we have video games to get us to talk about this shit?
It is nice, like to make this discussions for all ages and all thoughts, and to be able to examine a lot of these different,
and that these things are accessible, man. That like a lot of times, especially when it comes to philosophy and stuff like that, like people hear the word philosophy and they think of Plato, giant, old man, giant white beard, holding old dusty books, or guys, creeped over in libraries with their spectacles, and they think it's this lofty, unattainable thing for what you would consider a common or average person. But man, philosophy is life. Break it down. Philosophia, it is the love of knowledge. It is the knowledge of love. And just getting to understand the middle ground between yourself and the external. This is where philosophy lives, and it's making those connections and coming to those understandings. And God, do I love it.
Yeah, I love that, because like where people would say, oh, it's gated behind books or something like that. You've got things like video games that help, and movies that can help explore these thought concepts that people would normally just avoid altogether.
Well, and then also that movies and video games and stuff don't dilute or dumb these things down. They can, if they're not treated.
Some do, and
if they're not treated right. But I mean, like playing a video game or watching a movie or something that really engages you, that really opens up your mind to stuff like this, doesn't bring you up to the concepts level, and it doesn't bring the concepts level down to you. It just puts you both on the same wavelength, and that's, and so you get highfalutin people who think that, media, that wasn't written by a guy 1700 years ago or something like that.
In the original Latin.
Yeah, watching a movie or playing a video game or something is base, compared to reading the original texts. But at the same time, these things don't bring these concepts down, nor do you have to
yourself up.
Yeah, nor do you have to raise yourself up to get it. And that's just, it brings the energy, and it allows people who thought that they were not able to be grasped by these things, and that's the thing that I love. I love the complete dissemination of knowledge. I want everyone to be able to have that kind of experience.
You're still understanding the concept of of those focuses, even if you're not going, oh, this is clearly nihilism, or this is clearly determinism or absurdism. You're still kind of understanding what the meaning of it is.
And it's just it's enriching. It's enriching. Yeah, like that's the best for the soul. It's enriching for the soul, the mind, like everything. Like fucking Persona. Like we'll get into that later. Like Persona does some things.
Driven to intelligence and emotion by selection pressures.
I think there is no inherent meaning to our lives. I really do actually think that. And somehow I actually find that to be extremely comforting. I find that actually drives me forward. In a way, it's like, nothing matters. So, have at it. Make your own meaning. Right? Fuck the universe. We didn't ask to be here. A very improbable set of events led us to be here, but hey, we are here. How do we deal with that? We are born without our consent into a completely bonkers world full of suffering, and from my view, the only rational thing that we can do is roll with the punches and try to make the best of it. Because when you do that, you actually do find some meaning. It might not be any form of, this is the meaning of life, but it's meaning to you, and you live. Now, before we deal with the intersection of, I think, Meteor.
I wish I could get Xenos' uniform.
Emil Karan, I want to talk a little bit about Xenos. Because Xenos, well, little makes him feel, at least in a way that he externally portrays. The world has shaped him into a horrible, horrible, horrible being. As he says, he lives for the time between the seconds. A pure rush. Something that, well, is something that only happens when all of body, mind, and spirit are 100% firing, 110% firing. That's how little everything else makes Xenos feel. That is how desensitized, not just to suffering, but desensitized to everything he is. And as a foil for the Warrior of Light, the intent is quite clear. You are similarly powerful. However, you are not alone. The answer to his lack of meaning is not I think what he sees, the journeyers, the travelers, the adventurers, constant rush for the next challenge, the next big fight, increasing power. I think what the Warrior of Light discovers is that is not the meaning. That going for that is really just buying your 14th Ferrari and kind of wondering why it doesn't feel as good for the first, almost being left more and more empty. For when he tasted just a little bit of fighting you, everything else in his life became so much more meaningless. Doing that without interrogating why you're really seeking meaning in your 14th Ferrari.
Oh my God, he's Bleach. He's the person that has all these like cool scenes, but then the rest of his life is just boring, stupid filler that makes no sense.
I more equate Xenos, like especially like after like that kind of analysis. Xenos is evil Goku. Like Goku literally lives for nothing but the fight.
Yeah.
Like, he got married, didn't know it. Had kids, barely knew him. only really, like, gets with his own family in the context of whatever challenge
he's facing.
He's facing.
Gearing up for.
You know, like, I mean, he and like DBZ Abridged, like, kind of really, like, kind of, because they take the piss out of it. They really, like, open the doors on just how shitty of a person Goku is, and especially how shitty of a dad Goku is, because it's literally like he has no problems leaving his family, his friends, everything behind to go punch that guy in the face, and then will actively, like a goddamn sociopath, play with his loved one's emotions to get them to get into the fight or to do what he needs them to do, like to win. Like, he goes into the hyperbolic time chamber to train Gohan, not because he actually wants to spend time with the kid, but because he and Gohan are the two most powerful people in the world, and they're the only ones who are going to be able to stop Cell. You know, like that's literally it.
That's the extent of his connection, his familial connection.
Vegeta is a better dad than Goku, because at least he has an emotional connection with his son. You know, that maybe it's not altogether positive, but like, Goku didn't even have the gumption. I mean, part of it was because Vegeta kind of took him out, but it was Vegeta who knocked out Goten and Trunks before going to fight Boo. You know, and
I literally have no idea who half of them are.
But it's Goku's idea to let his kid, you know, 12, 13 years old, fight Cell, because he's like, I know he's powerful enough to do it. I know he's powerful enough to do it. You know, and he does, like, that's another tangent. But Xenos is evil Goku. Like, he's literally evil Goku. He lives only for the fight, and he will manipulate and generate whatever emotions he wants to in other people to achieve his goals.
His ends, yeah.
And like, that's
all there is to him, really.
Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to him.
Yeah. There's not much to it.
And a part of that is
can't believe we've been at this for over an hour.
Now, the Warrior of Light is always obviously up for a challenge. The Warrior of Light,
we're only about halfway done with the video.
And those challenges undoubtedly make them stronger. But in truth, they fight for those around them, I think. And I think they do that because that's the right thing to do. And of course, there is room for player expression in all of that through the dialogue options that are afforded to the player up until now. Xenos, in a way, is your stat sheet with a, I would almost say, stripped of character. He's certainly your stat sheet, I think, stripped of your character. He's a very different guy, but he undoubtedly does have that power. Moreover, he can be read as a mirror. I would actually argue that he's less a mirror to the Warrior of Light than he is a mirror to the person behind the keyboard. Why are we playing an MMO? Why are we always trying to get greater and greater and greater power? And this may even make more sense, as the player behind the keyboard has seen far, far more of Xenos ye Galvis than the Warrior of Light has. Think about how few times the Warrior of Light has actually seen Xenos. And remember that at the end of Stormblood, that's Elidibus, not Xenos. We only see this guy a handful of times. In the final encounter, I mean, he practically addresses the player. Now, for some, this is the ultimate hype moment.
3 times,
absolutely loved it. Xenos is both a commentary on the MMO gamer and on one path man can take in a search for meaning. Obviously, blown to a very fun, over-the-top level. And that all slots very nicely into the ideas that Endwalker is exploring, and frankly, I enjoyed Xenos right up until the end. So you might wonder then why he didn't click for me. Well, I've actually been racking my brain for days on this one, and I actually think it's quite small. So fundamentally, I play for characters, but I felt that Xenos was a character that I had more of a relationship with than my character did. And unfortunately, that led to my immersion in the game's finale being broken. I felt that I was yanked out of it just as I was on the high of loving the scene with Meteon. And then unfortunately, while I absolutely love the music that kicks in with Xenos, it was not matched with my emotional tone at that moment. And I think that further pushed me out of the experience. Essentially, I think I slipped through the cracks in their script, and that is not something I would have expected, given my general broad sort of philosophical outlook on life and what Endwalker has to say about it. Now, in my view, dialogue option 1 with Xenos is the best. It did not fit me, but if it fit you, then you had a blast. The stars aligned and the ultimate trial of will took place at the edge of the universe. Options 2 and 3 still led to the fight that Xenos wanted, and for me, I think...
Okay, so, fist fight at the edge of the universe. So, 1, which of the 3 did you pick?
I did pick the first one.
Okay. I picked the third one. We for everybody's edification, we're going to go into a big video about Xenos, about Xenos and this thing. We're going to make a thing for it. But just to touch on
succinct,
just to touch on, there should have been, and Bellular is going to say it too, there should have been a walkaway option. There's arguments for that. Like I said, we're going to go into that, but there should have been a walkaway option. But at the same time, maybe I'm missing something. I don't see as much depth in Xenos that I think Bellular is saying, especially in calling him a commentary on the MMO player. I think at that bit at the end where he calls you adventurer, he's not breaking the fourth wall. He is trying to rouse the sense of, adventure and overcoming a challenge inside the Warrior of Light, because he's literally at this point done everything he possibly can to get the final fight out of you that he wants.
Yeah, I feel like he's trying to go a little bit of that Emmett Salk road where he's trying to find that common ground. Yeah. And by saying, oh, you're just like me as an adventurer, you're seeking the thrills. That's kind of what it seemed more like, a little bit of a desperation move.
Yeah, and it's not like, and even in that, he's grasping at straws. Yeah. Because at this point where he's standing there and you're literally standing at the edge of the universe, he has done everything he possibly can. And at that point, if you were to deny him, that's a whole other ball of wax. So he's trying to, like I said, I don't put, and it sucks for me because I dig Xenos. I get where other people have their problems with Xenos, where other people don't, we're like, oh, Xenos is a terrible villain. Xenos isn't a villain. He's a tool. He is a plot device.
He's a plot device, yeah.
Yeah.
To me, that's what he is, yeah. He's the eye of Autothon, or...
Yeah.
He's just the Deus Ex Machina. He literally is, because he shows up just to be the platform that you
just to be the platform that you fight on, yeah.
Which I had problems with it as well.
Yeah, I think they intended for Xenos, when they originally wrote him, to be to be the anti-warrior of light, to be the warrior of darkness. And there's a lot of little bits where, as I follow the narrative through line of the story, where it looks like along the way they had an idea, and then they changed their mind. And they've had to course correct on a lot of little things. And Xenos is the biggest thing that they've had to course correct on. And I think it's because when they threw Xenos out there and they gave him to us in Stormblood, no one liked him. I think they wanted Xenos to be our Sephiroth. To be that villain that we fantasize about.
That's funny because you say that because I never really thought much of Sephiroth either as a villain.
Well, culturally,
he's cool, really cool. Everybody loves culturally as a world, people love Sephiroth. Yeah,
culturally, Sephiroth's the thing, and I think that's what they were going for when they made Xenos. They wanted to make our bad guy, the guy that we sit there and go, man, I'm going to look forward to fighting this guy and seeing where a story goes.
Sephiroth is what happens when Xenos and Medion have a baby. He's the sad nihilist that wants to end the world.
Sephiroth.
And fight Cloud.
When you talk about the sad nihilist, that's pretty much Sephiroth. Oh, the world sucks and nothing is the way that I want it to be, so I'm just going to end everything. Yeah.
It's a very good Sephiroth face you have there.
But I think that they were trying to go for that iconic villain because we really hadn't had one, and I think the original idea was really to build up to Xenos, yay, Zodiark against Warrior, yay, Hydaelyn. Because and the big thing for that, and then I'll get off this, is in the trailer. The original Footfalls trailer, Xenos at the end, and there, beyond the stars, at the final edge of fate, betwixt blades dark and light, tolling the coming of the end. We didn't get that.
No, we didn't.
There was nothing. You could say that our fight at the end there is at the far edge of fate. Is it betwixt blades, dark and light? I guess so, because you have Xenos, who's, dark guy, and we're glowing golden with Dynamis. And tolling the coming of the end. And one could say that's just Xenos waxing poetic, but I really think that they wanted Xenos to be, the warrior of darkness, and then something happened in Shadowbringers and they took a left turn. I think they wanted to turn things on their head, and they're like, no, Xenos isn't the warrior of darkness. We're going to be the warrior of darkness. They wanted to put a little bit more edge on it.
That if there ever was a time for this game to break its convention, I think it probably was this time. I really would have liked an extended, perhaps more Mass Effect-y style conversation with Xenos. Of course, dialogue trees are exceedingly easy to implement in a game, and I think I would have just liked, assuming that it's a Warrior of Light who is not just selecting option 1 and is very down to clown with Xenos after all the, everyone's been through, assuming your character's not that, I think that a few more dialogue options and a longer conversation, I think that really would have been the way to do it. Perhaps let the character outright deny Xenos' wish for that fight at the outset.
I would have marked out pretty heavy if we had
have an extended scene,
Mass Effect-y type,
and of course perhaps allow that scene to lead to the fight anyway. A good example here, I love how in Mass Effect you could kind of do that with the character Saren. You could basically convince him to kill himself. I thought that was a really nice bit of narrative design. And
is it still playing for you?
It wouldn't have mattered
if
the fight happened no matter what. I just think that option 1 fit like
I don't know why I did
60, 70, maybe more
Get me back
percentage
in.
of people. And I think it was clearly the writer's preference, especially with the meta commentary there. But I do think that a Saren-like solution would have fit
there's
my
Mike.
character better because, yes,
I am an absolute fucking bellend. Like, I don't even... Why is my head so huge? I don't know. I don't...
Hey, pause.
What is going on? Ah. Ah. Okay, go ahead and
That's totally gonna
start
be
it.
the video, by the way.
Yeah, fucking keep that.
Overcoming challenges to gain more power, but my character has also spent a lot of time with the likes of Alize and Alphino, and I think that she has learned a hell of a lot from those characters. And I think that
Graha
because
has
of what she's learned
cheeseburger.
from those characters, a more in-depth conversation with Xenos would have fit her better. So as it stands, I kind of felt like I was dragged in.
So real quick, one more thing about that is through most of the game, especially with dealing with the villains and the enemies and the opposition and stuff like that, a considerable amount of time and effort is taken to attempt to understand them and attempt to reach some sort of accord. And we've done it with everybody. Like everybody that we actually had dialogue with, that we ended up having to fight. We've always been like, we want to achieve some sort of understanding, and then at the point where our ideals cannot coexist, then we'll have it out. I'll kick your ass and I'll be right. Because I'm the warrior of light. You can't do anything about it.
I feel like that's maybe why those options didn't work for me, because I felt like as my character going through the story, I've generally, I think, picked the, let's avoid combat if we can. It's the I don't want to fight you, but if I will, I'll kick your ass.
Yeah, it's the General Mattis. It's the I'm coming to you now on my hands and knees with tears in my eyes.
Yeah, don't make me kill you.
Don't make me kill you.
Yeah,
and but I mean that was the thing, is that like in most of the other instances we're given the option to at least pretend like we're attempting to understand our adversary. We don't get that with Xenos. And I don't know if that's just because they were just like, look, we just need to get Xenos.
Gotta write him out.
We gotta write him out. Like we created a monster that we literally do not have any control over, because like, what do you do? What do you do with Xenos? Like, especially since you've already set him on a trajectory, he's a guided missile and you've already launched it. So
I assumed he was going to turn into like an extraterrestrial warlord, go off to another planet, become the warlord of that world, and then come back to Aetheris, but nope.
Yeah. I mean, and I would have accepted that. I would have been like, you know what, Xenos, go do your thing, and then you're gonna come back, and it's gonna be Warlords of Draenor. It's gonna be Battle for Azeroth.
Yeah, as I say, BFA.
But Battle for
Aetheris.
Yeah, Aetheris Defender, Final Fantasy 14. Anyways, but yeah, we never really get that opportunity to attempt to understand Xenos, which I think is an important thing, and probably would have created a little bit more resonance.
Haha, I see what you did
As
there.
it stands, I kind of felt like I was dragged into a fight that Xenos wanted.
I never noticed that.
Hey, Xenos here.
Now,
Xenos
obviously, Xenos cannot be allowed to live.
And that's literally
this is a
Xenos
guy
to
who
me.
hastened the final days by being part of a plot that involved turning his father into anima, and of course powering the various different towers. Well, not powering, but imbuing them, whatever, with the limbs of his father who he murdered. And also, by the way, he's a cosmic dragon now. Xenos obviously had to go. I wish there was just more ways than one. For my character, the why of fighting has always outweighed the fun of fighting, because killing is inherently tragic, even if it is just. And while
Fuck you, Hermes.
is a mirror, I think the
Yeah,
word
unless it's
light
Hermes.
always fought to protect, to defend, and for what they love. And there can be no doubt that Garlemald, while, doing so in a misguided way, there can be no denying that it was a violent, expansionist, totalitarian dictatorship with a robust propaganda arm, and they were always shown to not be a gracious victor. They were always a conqueror who subjected the native people to every indignity that one could think of. So, while to the Garlean foot soldier, the Warrior of Light is a Xenos tier terror, I think that the second you zoom out, it does become a pretty damn different situation, insofar as these characters being mirrors of each other goes. I think for me, Xenos was the most enjoyable when Alisaie was putting him down. And I mean, no wonder. Alisaie is my favorite character in this game. I think she's also right, and I think that for all the Xenos rot, and for why he did it, I do think what she said basically is what he deserves. And maybe there's a bit of resentment in me that, in the end, he kind of got his wish. But of course, he is disappointed, and that I do like. Obviously, the 14th Ferrari's never going to feel as good as the first. Ultimately, he got a taste of bliss from that fight with me, and he's been chasing his manic pixie dream girl
chasing the dragon
of that. Right? He's
literally been chasing the dragon
over my character, what she means to him, and it's a completely one-sided relationship. I believe that my character is his mirror, but only in his own head, not hers.
Yeah.
He was playing a silly game and he got a silly prize. He ostensibly dies unfulfilled, even lacking the strength to finish his last words. Now, you may wonder what his last words would be. I actually think the key there is that maybe he didn't die so unfulfilled, and maybe that is the more powerful bit of his end.
Maybe he didn't die at all.
There's a strange appearance of the teleporter that takes you back to the Ragnarok. How did that appear? I mean, I think, given that you are in like the realm of pure dynamis pretty much, that was Xenos' final thing. And that maybe in defeating him and showing him that the thing that he was lusting after for so long, that it was not a satisfying thing. Well, you proved that he was wrong and you were right. And perhaps giving you the way out there was the last thing he could do. And I think that is where it does work a little bit better. For me, though, I think I just
don't think that's so in Xenos' idiom. I think we got the teleporter because we're in the realm of Dynamis and our friends really wanted us to come back home. I don't think Xenos MacGuffin that. One, me personally, myself, I don't think Xenos is dead. And I'll probably be proven wrong on that, like I was proven wrong on everything else. But I think right now, and this goes back to a point I made a long ass time ago. I think right now, Xenos is still lying there at the edge of the universe, just kind of ruminating, just kind of thinking.
That's how I think he's doing too. Yeah,
he's just kind of like, man, this wasn't what it was cracked up to be. Yeah, this isn't what I expected.
The grass is greener on the other side,
and we're probably gonna see Xenos again. And how this links to a point I made a long time ago is because they'll redeem anybody.
I was going to say, I feel like he's going to have like a Yotsuyu moment where like,
and
he starts to see things or meet someone that gives him meaning other than what he was.
And I'm willing to bet that comes 6.1, we're going to get something like Letters from Xenos, where we're gonna get little tiny like nuggets of information, like some kind of Easter egg, you know.
Okay, yeah.
You know, like we're gonna get little like blink and you miss it moments, you know, that eventually someone will pause and zoom in and start to pick apart, and it's just gonna trickle down And maybe by the end of this expansion, going into the next one, we're gonna get one more Xenos, and it's either going to be one more Xenos that's gonna help us, do whatever's gonna take us on into the next big arc, or Xenos is the next big arc, where Xenos becomes the anti-spiral.
I feel like it's not going that direction, especially because of FF in the redeeming part, but I feel like even towards the end, he's kind of like fighting you is not his thrill anymore, and I feel like it's going to lean towards more he's going to try to find that next big great villain that you both fight.
Yeah, I mean that, but yeah, like
he's going to be the Seishomaru. Was it Seishomaru? Yeah,
Seishomaru. Yeah,
Seishomaru,
the Seishomaru to our Inuyasha.
Yeah.
Like if they're going to redeem him, and he's going to be our Vegeta. He's going to be, or even better. I mean, talking about Bleach references, he's going to be Zaraki Kenpachi. Where he's just literally a force of fucking nature that every once, he's going to be Broly. He's the man you got to be shitting me guy, we're going to be out there fighting something or facing some kind of big, cosmic level threat. And in comes Xenos, like, hey, buddy, I've spent the past, I don't know fucking how long, like, just kind of like, man, thinking and like, like drinking juice and like just kind of hanging out. I grabbed me a Medion, and we've just been kind of talking and chilling. And I hear I hear you got some trouble. So let's do it, buddy.
Hey, bro. I'm here for
bro.
You. Hey, gal.
Yeah, it's like, I'm here for you. And everyone else is like, fuck Xenos. And you're just like, Xenos.
All right, Scrappy Doo. What's going on?
Yeah, he's gonna be our Scrappy Doo.
Was the last thing he could do. And I think that is where it does work a little bit better. For me, though, I think I just didn't like coming to that conclusion so much in his terms. I think option 1 characters, for them, this all happens on their terms. For, like Xenos, they crave the bliss. But I didn't. I never have. That's never really what the game has been about for me as I've played through MSQ. It's always been about heart and characters. And to be honest with you, this is a situation where I like to think about jiu-jitsu. It's all using the opponent's weight and movements against them. It's it's where like a small move that uses the opponent's weight and all of that can be extremely effective. So for me, I kind of got jiu-jitsu'd at the end. But what that also means is that I think for this experience to have landed for me, it only would have taken a few more lines. But ultimately, it did break my immersion at the worst time with Xenos. And then, unfortunately, whenever they chose to bring in the music, that music was really just not in line with my character in terms of emotional tone. And basically from then on, it just felt a bit off to me. And by the time the story was wrapping up, I felt I was somewhat ripped out of my immersion. And that basically is my Xenos experience. And it is the only bit of Endwalker that didn't work for me, basically. So for me overall, I was quite sad that my little experience of that ending was quite experientially damaging to me. And I think that really a lot of the payoff of a story that I adored didn't hit me emotionally. And to be honest with you, I'm really feeling quite troubled by that, quite sad about that. But when I reflect on the journey, it's the little joys that I remember. And I suppose that's, even if I didn't so much enjoy the ending, perhaps that is me to a degree living the lesson of this tale. Now, there are some other criticisms people have had, some of the time travel-y stuff, which, I felt was totally grand and well established within the universe. And a few other things like the pacing, spending a whole bunch of time with the scholars and Shardy. And honestly, I I liked all of that. I like spending time in this universe. I like talking to characters in this universe. And I think the likes of, say, Fortuno wouldn't have hit as hard if it wasn't clear that, you know, he went into his whole final little gambit with us, having all of his own expectations, and he's basically forced to watch all of these people that have really coalesced around his son and his daughter go and do what they do. And I just felt like that experience and the second bit of Labyrinthos, it just had to play out that way for Fortuno's story to hit. And I think his story is just so important to the twins that I was happy with that. So there you go. I mean, hey, was that Elidibus?
Yes.
Talking about Pandemonium at the very end? I don't know. I haven't played the narrative content that has just dropped today as a part of
week ago for us.
Out, so yeah,
2 weeks
there's
ago,
that to do. That's it for this week.
Okay, so to wrap up our own thoughts on it,
I mean, yeah, I had mostly the same feelings where I definitely have enjoyed it, Endwalker, and that ending definitely threw things off. I know, you know, for me, after the ending, waking up back on the ship, I was like, oh god, I gotta have to you know, get back into the mood of my character.
Yeah, I don't view the fight with Xenos as the end. I think that the end is when you finish talking with Medion and Medion takes off. Everything after that is kind of the epilogue. You've hit the end.
You have, yeah.
You've given your answer to Medion. You've proven the force of hope over the force of despair, and now Xenos is literally just a loose end, and he's a loose end more of his own creation than of yours. And while none of the dialogue options, like I said, there should have been a walk away option, but at the same time, if they had given us a walk away option, there would have been a whole lot of, oh, well, what are you going to do with Xenos? Having that fight with Xenos, regardless of how you feel about it, means that if they decide that they want to bring Xenos back, they can.
Yeah.
If they decide they don't want to bring Xenos back, they don't have to. They've committed themselves to the non-finish, as it's said in wrestling. You know, they've made it to where the face, the hero, still looks strong because he defeated the heel, but you're not 100% sure if the heel's gone, so they can always bring the heel back and run it again, you know, to put butts in seats later if it was a particularly good thing.
Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts as well. Like, even if there was that option to walk away, likely, like I said, it would have circled around to probably having to fight him one way or another to be able to easily write him off. If you had the branch where you just walked away and he was just there, I think it leaves it more open to, oh, well, then he's definitely still alive.
Yeah.
As opposed to he could be alive. He's Schrodinger's Xenos.
Yeah, it's Schrodinger's Xenos. Yeah, he's a quantum Xenos. He is both. Yeah. He is both there and not there.
Exactly.
And so it's. I think on another playthrough, when we go through it with the alts.
Yeah.
I think, and when we give ourselves the ability to actually digest, you know. So I think going through it again. Which is going to be different, especially on my alt, because my alt doesn't have nearly the other side content done that my main does. So some of the storytelling is going to be way different. Like I literally didn't do Crystal Tower on my alt until it forced me to.
It was mandatory.
Yeah, and because he went into Shadowbringers before they made it mandatory, so I didn't have to do it then. So I didn't have to do it until 5.3.
Yeah.
Because you have to do it before you do 5.3. So, so I literally didn't do it until then. So that's gonna be some interesting narration. But anyways,
might have been February too, but yeah, sidetrack.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's our first ever reaction content
video. Still kind of long, but we'll.
Well, I mean, usually React content is twice as long as
the content. So
as the content
fair
itself.
Fair enough.
So I think we did all right. Go ahead and hit him with the closer.
All right. If you liked the video, like, share, subscribe. Thanks for all your support so far. We're like so close to 100 subscribers. It's really awesome. And two. I didn't want to say a number, but yeah, 2.
I'll say a fucking number 2. 2. There are 2 of you people out there.
Like, share, subscribe, comment.
Yeah. We're gonna put the link,
official.
of course, for Bellular's video in the description, so that way people who haven't checked it out yet, they can watch all of their other videos as well. We love them.
Love Bellular.
Big goals
and Matt.
I can't do the heart. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and take it easy. And if it's easy, take it twice.